Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Contractor Evolution. This is your host, Benji, and today's conversation is a deep dive into business development, why it's important, and how to do it better. Look, we've covered a lot of ground on this podcast on all things residential marketing and sales system, but the requests keep piling up in my inbox for more content for commercial contractors. So to walk us through this biz dev masterclass, we are lucky to have Dave Notte on the show today. He is the founder of WCP Building Renewal, and for 20 years, they have partnered with commercial property groups, residential property management companies, HOAs and stratas, and in that time have developed an incredibly dialed in customer acquisition strategy. So if you want to learn how sophisticated commercial contractors court, land, retain, and build trust with huge clients that do business with them for years or even decades, this episode is a must listen. So without further ado, let's dive in with Dave.
You're watching Contractor Evolution, where we unpack the systems, tactics, and skills you need to take your fast-growing contracting business to the next level.
You're here to learn what it takes to scale up, work less, and increase profitability. You've come to the right place.
Stay tuned to learn what separates the new breed of contractor from the old school, and welcome to your ultimate guide on the business of contracting.
Dave Notte, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, man. Good to see you.
It's great to have you here. We're going to do today kind of like an outline and a framework for how to get the business development engine inside a business going, which is something you know a lot about. For our listeners, I think a brief history on you, the various businesses that you've built would kind of help them understand where this conversation that follows comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. So like many people in construction, I got my start in the commercial or in the student painting business years and years ago, right? I had a long run there. And then from there, I started my own commercial painting company called Wolfgang Commercial Painters. And that company has been around for a couple decades. We've recently rebranded, and I'll go into that story a little bit. While I was growing Wolfgang Commercial Painters, I started a company called Shack Shine. We franchised that. I sold that off. That was a fun sort of 4-year sprint or 4 or 5 year sprint. And then, came back and focused on Wolfgang Commercial Painters. And the last little bit, we've rebranded that company to call it WCP Building Renewal. And we can go into sort of
what was that about? Yeah, go ahead. Like, why did you guys make that decision?
So, over the years, as the business grew and we started working on really building envelopes more and more, everything to do with a building envelope. So whether that be a high rise made of concrete, and we were doing concrete repair, sealant repair, membranes, waterproofing, railings, we started dabbling in all sorts of different services. And we realized we had sort of grown out of the tagline of commercial painting. It still was a large component of what we were doing on our jobs, but by no means was it the core component. Mm-hmm. So there was the service side of it. And we said, well, commercial painting no longer captures what we do. And then there also was the realization that the building renewal category, of which is in its infancy in the construction world.
A burgeoning market, let's say.
A burgeoning market, yeah. I sort of saw an opportunity there. I'm like, okay, well, I'm starting to hear customers talk about building renewal, starting to hear engineers and consultants talk about building renewal. A few of my competitors dabbling with the term. I thought, okay, here's an opportunity to maybe own this term as it starts to grow. So we sort of latched onto this building renewal concept. So that's sort of the branding side of it and the service side of it. And then there's also the business fundamental side of it.
Yeah.
Building renewal. So really what it is it's the fixing of all substrates on the exterior of the building and the interior common areas of a building.
Yeah.
It's a much higher barrier to entry than a lot of other trades because there's a significant amount of building science involved in it. You need a lot of knowledge. Your technicians need a lot of skill. Okay. So higher barrier to entry, less competitors. The people that you are competing against are legit. Mm-hmm. So it's an even playing field, let's say, and the margins hold. The margins are strong. Mm. And then there's a whole repeat business aspect of it that we're going to dive into a little bit deeper. But that sort of gives you an idea of why we decided to focus more on building Renewal and sort of drop the tagline as commercial painters.
You've been working, while we dropped the commercial painters label, you've been working in the commercial space, working with, this sort of non-homeowner buyers for a long time though. Yeah. 20 years?
Yeah. Two decades plus. And the marketplace knew us as commercial painters. That's why we kept WCP.
Yeah.
It's a tribute to our past, 20 years servicing hundreds of customers, thousands of projects. We didn't want to lose that. So we kept WCP, acronym for Wolfgang Commercial Painters, added building Renewal.
So commercial versus residential.
Yeah.
Can a contractor effectively niche into both, or is it better to specialize? What's your personal philosophy on that?
Right. It's a great question. And my opinion on it, my philosophy on it is no, hard no. I think in business, you got to specialize. Right. So, and that can mean you're either residential or commercial, or new construction or reworks, right? To do both is very challenging. They are different businesses.
Why? Can you say more about that?
Okay. So the commercial versus business to business, or sorry, commercial versus residential, right? Totally different client type. Totally different need. On one side, you're dealing with someone's home, their prized possession. It's, where they come back to every single day, where their kids are raised. They treasure it. They value it. You have to treat that person so well, right? It's very heavy on the service side. The customers have different needs, right? Whereas on the commercial side, you're dealing with someone's real estate asset. Of course, it's important to them. It's a hugely valuable asset, a big part of probably their investment portfolio. But they have different needs than homeowners do. They want you in and out quick. They want to know that your knowledge is through the roof, that you're solving problems for them. They do not want to be involved in the projects.
Right.
Homeowners do.
Right.
They
That's
want to
a really important distinction.
Right. They want to watch you every step of the way.
Updates every day.
Every day. With business to business, they're like, we don't want updates every day. We've hired you because you're a professional. If you're updating me every day, you're not making my life any easier. Right. Very different businesses.
Different incentive structure for the buyer. Here's another one. I think homeowners are using, those are after-tax dollars too. This is a totally different sort of, the way that they would treat the money that they're spending on the project is even different. What can you say about the scopes of work and the production process? You're kind of talking about the psychographics and the emotionality or lack of emotionality between these two buyer types. But can you maybe elaborate on the differences in terms of the actual work that you get hired to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, these can be complex logistical puzzles that you're putting together on these projects. Say you're working with a property group that owns shopping centers or strip malls. They have multiple high value tenants within the shopping center. Maybe it's a bank like BMO, or maybe it's Costco's there, or another big grocer. Business interruption is so important for them, meaning that you're not going to interrupt the day-to-day of the business.
Yeah.
Or you're not going to be occupying high value parking stalls when you're producing the work. You're going to be able to do the job off hours, or you're going to be able to source and supply and have the knowledge to apply materials that you can get in and out of quickly.
Yeah.
Right. Totally different. But this idea of not interrupting the tenant, not interrupting their business is incredibly important for them.
Have you seen, and can you speak to, or can you just even imagine sort of the situation? Again, this is just your opinion, but if someone were sort of the opinion that they could do both, I'm going to build out a residential division, it's going to be huge. I'm going to build out a commercial division, it's going to be huge. Have you seen anyone try to do that you can speak to? You don't need to name names, or just maybe give us the theoretical scenario. Sure. And I don't think it's a good one that this person would end up in.
I will name names. It was me. So back maybe 10 years ago with Wolfgang Commercial Painters. So not residential versus commercial, but new construction versus reworks, right? So we thought, okay, we've got this great business already built, repainting buildings for property groups and property managers. We want to grow. Let's go after a new segment. Let's start going after general contractors and doing new construction.
Yeah.
Okay. So over 4 years, we built up a multi-million-dollar division in new construction. We made a grand total of probably zero profit in that 4 years. Probably had 80 technicians or painters on payroll. We just couldn't figure out, because new construction is a volume game. Right. So you have to do 3 times the volume in new construction that you do in a rework business to get the profit, because the margins are so much lower, narrower, right? So there we tried to do 2 different businesses, 2 different customer types, 2 different production models simultaneously, and failed. Right. And not to mention, it's very difficult to get paid in new construction, right? So, a 4-year experiment that we ended up just closing the door on, saying this is not going to work. So, I've lived the pain of that one.
You are team specialize. If we're talking about, a contractor, and it doesn't need to be, painting, doesn't need to be building renewal. It doesn't need to be, it's just, we're kind of going industry agnostic here, but they're honing in on the commercial side of their business. That's where they see the brighter future for them and their team and their family. I want to explore this business development thing. So just in the simplest terms possible, what is business development? Let's start there.
Okay. So business development is the acquisition of customers or accounts and the building of relationships.
How is it different, or where does it kind of overlap with marketing and sales and some of these other things that we've explored more on this show?
It's a great question. And, just on Monday, I came off level 10 with my team, and we were talking about how we're starting to understand the difference between marketing and biz dev and sales more and more clearly. Marketing is generating brand awareness in my business,
your world,
my world, right? But I also believe this to be true in most construction services, commercial, okay? So brand awareness. So that is elevating your brand within the marketplace, within the eyes of your potential customer as the go-to, or as the industry expert, or as the subject matter expert, right? That's what marketing is for, and that's where marketing can be of value. From there, once the brand awareness is there and it's ever present and ongoing, right? That makes your business development, the acquisition of accounts and relationships, easier, right? Because the people that they're going after to try and establish a relationship with are warmed up through the marketing. So that is the big difference. We used to think that marketing was about generating opportunities. And it does. Of course, it generates opportunities. I mean, you do a Google paid campaign, you're going to generate opportunities, right? You do a Meta campaign, you're going to generate opportunities, but you're more so going to generate impressions and awareness, right? So it does generate opportunities, but really for us anyways, the goal now is to elevate the brand.
So, and then in your model, I think as well, like sales is also different. Like that's being done by another person or another team. Can you just explain the distinction there? And then also just like how all those things come together to create basically a revenue engine for you guys.
Right. Great question. So if you look at it this way, if you go, okay, so the biz dev person through different tactics, and we can dive into that, gets the account on board. So say a major property group that you've been targeting, they're doing the work through a bunch of different ways to get their foot in the door, to get the conversations happening, right? And their goal is to land that account, right? So then they get that account through all sorts of different tactics, and then eventually an opportunity pops out of that. The person that, say, they're dealing with the director of operations at a given account. They say, okay, my property manager has a building X. We need you to bid on that. Perfect. I'm going to put you together with Nathan, our rep who oversees this geography. He's going to take it from here.
Right.
Off Nathan goes. His goal is to land that opportunity.
So in sales terminology, is this akin to like biz dev being the opener, sales being the closer?
Yeah. And then biz dev, if you do it right, comes in at the end again.
Right.
Right. So sales rep lands the opportunity, production does its things, knocks it out of the park.
Yeah.
Biz dev comes back in and makes sure everybody's happy, the cheering, and then let's continue that relationship. What's next, right? And then sales rep goes off and does his thing. Biz dev takes over again. Boom, another opportunity gets passed to the sales rep.
So amazing. Perfect. That's a great setup, great definitions. We got the basic stuff out of the way. I want to dive into this business development framework that works for you guys. And you've been quite an open book as we sort of prep this offline. In no particular order, can you just kind of start by talking about, I think step one is knowing which accounts to go after in the first place. So let's start there.
Yeah, for sure. So the way I look at it is we want to acquire and work with customers that add enterprise value.
What does that mean?
Okay. So enterprise value from a customer standpoint is an account that has the potential to predictably repeat year over year. So we've analyzed all of our data and we can tell you the annual and lifetime value of every business or account that we've done business with over the last 10 years. We can tell you how many times they've repeated. We can tell you what is the value of each repeat from a annual or from a revenue and from a gross profit perspective. The idea is that if one day I sell this business, and that's the goal of every entrepreneur out there, we will be able to present a data set to our potential purchasers and say, look, every time you acquire an account, this is what you will get from them. Here's the data to show you. And then if you want to grow that set account, here's what you can expect from them, because here's what we get from an account in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and beyond.
In the software as a service world, there's the term LTV, which stands for lifetime value.
Exactly.
This is akin to that.
Yeah. So I just took it from my tech buddies.
Right.
I've always admired their businesses and blown away at ARR and their repeat, and just the way they measure everything, get the customer once and then go from there. I'm like, can I apply that concept to a construction service? And the answer is you can. But you got to target the right customers first.
So I'm really curious how you use that historical data. And it's a little bit of number crunching. It's not, it's not super, super complex math or anything. You're looking at revenue over the years, how many jobs did they do, blah, blah, blah. You can figure it out on a pretty simple spreadsheet. When you have those numbers of these various accounts, how do you guys use that to then go and look for, I guess, maybe new fish in the pond?
Right. I love it. So we use it to establish how much we're willing to spend to acquire a customer, because then we can measure our ROI. Right. So if I were to say to you, you go to any construction, not any, a lot of construction service companies, and you say, what would you think about spending $50,000 to acquire a customer? They'll probably go, yikes. Are you crazy? I can tell you that in some cases that's a deal. Right. Right. When you know the annual and lifetime value of a customer, you would spend and when you can see, at least in our case, we're willing to spend that money. And where do we spend that money? That's in a marketing specialist, in a biz dev specialist, in a marketing spend to support the marketing person, and a biz dev spend to support the biz dev person. Yeah. So we spend that money because we know there's a return on investment, assuming everybody executes, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, there's a few things you need to break your way, but when you're doing this en masse, the numbers are instructive. They're pretty reliable. So you guys are blessed to have done this for a while. There's a bit of a framework to calculate, these numbers, know who to go after. I guess when you go out there on the open market, and if you've been doing it for a while in a certain locale, you kind of know who's who. You kind of have the list made and know who you're going after. For someone that's maybe a newer contractor, is there, in other words, they don't have that, the lifetime value calculations worked out. Like, what should they be doing to kind of crack into some of these new clientele that they want to?
Right. So the first thing is identifying the right customer. And like I said, those are the customers that have repeat potential.
How would you define that, and how would you know if they do?
Right. So the where you're going to start is online, doing some just basic research. So what are the companies that have multiple real estate assets under management? And, you know, one insider tip here is everybody's going to look to property management companies. And by all means, property management companies can be a great source of business. But there's also groups out there that actually develop, own, manage, maintain, lease their real estate assets.
Deeper pockets, bigger portfolios.
And you're dealing directly with the decision maker.
So those are a different beat. And you're saying those are the really good ones.
Yeah.
You want the property group.
Yeah.
Property management groups are nice. The property groups are really what you're after.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it ain't an easy nut to crack.
I'm sure.
These are very sophisticated businesses. A lot of them are global.
Right.
But you're looking for companies like that. Now, it could also be a family-owned portfolio of real estate, right? It might be a holding company or a trust that's owned by a family, and you can find gold mines out there. They may have 20 buildings within a geography, and you've got to do your research to find that. You've got to get to the associations. This is biz dev again, right? And you can come across really exceptional customers that offer you repeat value through their portfolio, and they're great people to do business with. So
you put together you're doing Google search and some LinkedIn scrolling. You put together a list of people. Is there any math you might, like, how do you then sort of double click in on those and figure out if this is someone that's worth pursuing?
So I'll throw in there's all sorts of lead scraping tools and stuff like that you can purchase, and they'll help you build your list. And of course, list brokers, everybody knows that. But once you've got that, there's the tried and true method of just cold emails and cold calling. I mean, I still to this day, despite all the technology out there, I still to this day believe the good old phone call has the best return on investment.
You guys still do a lot of that in your business?
We do.
And it still works for you guys.
It still works. I mean, I don't know if you hear this from your other people at BTA and guests you have on, but people's inboxes are inundated now, right?
Totally.
Like open rates are plummeting. At least
oh my God.
Yeah, like
forget it.
Yeah. So
there's also by the way, Gmail's had it for a couple of years, but Apple just announced it. They're basically just auto filtering promotional stuff and unknown senders. So you're like, if you're in the low single digits for an open rate on your cold emails, like, you're doing really well. So extremely inefficient. It's
a really tough game to cut through the clutter on email, right? So pick up the phone, make some phone calls. People will pick up, and if you've got someone engaging on the other side, you're gonna generate some opportunities.
So you guys figure out kind of a cadence. So you get some contacts, whether it's a list that gets scraped, or someone who knows someone, or you buy the information in some other way. You're warming them up with emails. You're warming them up with phone calls.
Right.
Sooner or later, there's what would you say, like a nibble on the line, right?
Yeah.
Like there's somebody that says, oh, you know what? Yeah, sure. Let's meet for lunch, or you can come have a look at this project. Like, what's kind of like the next step in the flow?
So I'll back it up a little bit there. There has to be, so yes, you're right on the, you're warming them up. That those drip and nurture campaigns have to go on, regardless of how successful or not you feel they are. It has to go. That's the awareness piece, right? Then you've got to offer the marketplace, especially in business to business, something of value, right? So whether that is in the form of a lunch and learn, or in the form of an online web shop, or in the form of presenting at your associations, something. And it can't just be a dog and pony show. Like, look at the services we offer. Look at how good we are. Like, these people have seen that over and over and over again. So what we look to do is leverage a pain point of these customers. Like it could be like you can't get the last 5% of the project across the line. How do you do that in an efficient way? How do you tackle that problem where everybody's pulling their hair out at the end of a project trying to get it done? We'll put together a web shop on that. Boots on the ground experience of how to get a job across the line, built specifically for property professionals. Okay.
Yeah, there's something unique about the business to business environment versus business to homeowner environment, which is that, or business to consumer environment, which is that you guys actually have a lot of shared knowledge, shared pain points, shared systems. Would you say that there's an opportunity, a better opportunity to, through a web class, through a whatever, to like actually add value, teach them something, give them something valuable, because they're a property group, you do building renewals, but there's overlap there where you can actually truly create content, give a talk, put together a white paper, whatever, that they'll actually open, read, and say, this is really helpful. Actually, I like this Dave guy. I'll call him next time. Is that the case?
100%.
Yeah.
There's a high get it factor on both sides.
I like that term.
And you're working together. Like you are in partnership with these people.
Okay.
Right. So with some of our customers, their ops team is on a first name basis with my technicians in the jobs. Right? They are working together. Say we're doing a large membrane project, right? Mm-hmm. They're coordinated. They're texting each other every day, getting the job across the line. Like you're in the project together, right? And it's the same thing with our customers, project managers, property managers, operations lead. Like I said, that high get it factor. If you have something of value that you can offer them, how to select a contractor, how to do online research, what's the best vetting tool out there?
Right.
They're interested in that.
What is a lunch and learn?
Right.
I'm almost too embarrassed to ask, but I've never done one.
Okay.
And you hear about them all the time. I do lunch and learns. I've got a few friends and lots of BTA colleagues that are always off at lunch and learns. What's a lunch and learn?
Right. So lunch and learn is like a web shop, online web shop. You're just doing it in person, and you're buying a really great lunch for the office. So we've got one coming up tomorrow with a key client. We've got 40 people in the room, 40 decision makers in the room.
Wow.
Right. And of course we're gonna treat them real well. But the presentation that we're doing, it's on selecting contractors and avoiding red flags. Like what are the red flags to look for? So we're gonna add value there, and we're gonna have a good time.
So this is an important point. You are actually not there going sell. Like it's not a heavy duty pitch fest. I'm sure you mentioned what you guys do at some point.
Absolutely. There's got to be a call to action.
But you're there to teach them something, add value in some way. Would you make the case that somebody that is just showing up with some catered sandwiches and then basically running through a brochure on their business, that's maybe not as good of a lunch and learn?
Yeah. Try to add value with it. Try to stand out. Again, it's elevating your brand as an industry expert.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So, going back to my question, where was I? Nurture goes out, cold email goes out. At some point you get a nibble. When do we kind of move into that next, call it second base of the relationship, or what is triggered in the sequence next?
Right. So nurture goes out, cold email goes out. Typically there'll be a campaign with a $10 web shop. The goal of that is to get the lunch and learn.
Okay.
So you do one web shop, you get one lunch and learn. That's a great outcome. Then the lunch and learn happens. Typically right there in the room, the opportunities are generated. They're like, by the way, thanks so much. This was valuable. By the way, we need you to look this, and this building. And then it gets passed off to sales from there.
So a lot of the wins happen at these lunch and learns?
Yeah, the actual request to go and look at a building will come out of the lunch and learn as one of the tactics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to me a bit about like associations, the networking side of this, the overall kind of social game that a good business development person and a good business development strategy is doing.
Right. There's so many good associations out there. And some of them shine on the education side of things, and others shine on the just networking side of things, the ability to get in the same room with the right people, with decision makers. The key to any association is getting legitimately involved in it. And ideally, you get involved on the leadership side of it. So whether that's a board seat or an advisor seat, that's where some magic can really happen. A good way to not get value out of an association is just to throw money at it and sponsor events and just be a sign at the golf tournament. That's going to do nothing for you. You have to be there. You have to be present. You have to go to all the events. You will start to see similar faces over and over and over again. And they're typically people who like to do business that are hanging out at these associations. They're the people you want to talk to. They're people. They're social. They're business development people. That's why they're there. They're there to do deals, right? So get involved. Now, and I also will say like this, it's a significant investment to really get involved in an association, right? It's not just every couple months you're going out for beers. Yeah.
Okay, we got to pause. We got to talk about wardrobe here very briefly. I got my great outfit on. Ladies and gentlemen, my outfit today is brought to you by Jason Bowden of Armor Roofing. They specialize in residential standing seam metal, cedar, and copper roof systems from Orrington, Maine, East Coaster. Been a member since January of 2023. Revenue growth. Last year they did 1.5 million. This year they're on track to do 1.9 million. The biggest thing BTA has helped them with is their tech stack. It's also been huge for the mindset of being an entrepreneur and not just owning a job. It's totally changed my approach to things, he says. However, the biggest help that BTA has brought is the community. By the way, just as an aside, if you've not learned about Breakthrough Academy or learned about our amazing community of 600 plus people, there will be a link below that you can click on and find out a bit more about us. Anyway, to finish what Jason said, learning from fellow entrepreneurs, the experience and knowledge shared, and also the accountability factor from other members and my coach has been the biggest help to my business. Thank you to Armor Roofing for the hat and the shirt. Appreciate you guys. Let's get back to this thing, Dave. So where was I? Okay. We talked a little bit about calculating the value. We talked a little bit about making sure you're going after the right people. We talked a little bit about the early stage outbound approach. This is all very, by the way, it strikes me as quite old school. We live in it. We live in a world where it's all about your marketing funnel. And we're spending on SEO and we're spending on brand and website optimization. And is the button in the right place and the right color to make people click on it in the most efficient way. We're A/B testing everything.
Yeah.
It's great.
We do all that too. Yeah. Unfortunately.
You do all that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
What we're talking about right now is this is ground game.
Yeah.
This is person to person.
Yeah.
It's building relationships. Yeah. It's much longer term.
Yeah.
So it's totally a different approach. What is the this seems like a simple question, but I think it's important to ask. All this activity, what's the explicit goal of all this? What are you trying to gain?
Right. So to get that account, right, which is a very different mindset than get the opportunity.
Explain that.
Then bid on the job. So bid on the job is short-term thinking. Bid on the job, get the job for this season, maximize profit out of it, only bid at a certain margin. If we don't get it, on to the next, less than stellar success ratio. It's a numbers game, right? I'm not interested in that. I've done that. I've done my time in that world. Getting the account is a long-term play to add enterprise value, right? Totally different approach. You want to get to the point where price is always a factor, but it's not the key decision point for these customers. They're willing to pay for a trusted advisor that takes care of their real estate and their tenants in their properties. They are willing to pay a premium for that. So that's the goal. Get that account, wow them, and then ensure that they repeat over and over and over again.
At that early stage where you're trying to get in the door and land the account, are there ever judgment calls that you need to make on pricing where you'll
100%.
take a job? Hey, I'm
100%.
going to take it. I'm going to do this a little skinny on this one because I know that there's an opportunity to have a 10-year relationship, a 20-year relationship with this group or this person. Talk a little bit about the mental math there. I think that's an important point.
Cost of acquisition. That's the way you got to look at it. Right? It's not like, oh man, we got to bid this 10 points lower than we normally would. That's a, sort of a narrow-minded way to look at it. No, it's like we got to bid this 10, 15 points low to build it up to be 10, 15 points higher than our average, repeating year after year after year, right? It's just cost of acquisition. That's the way I look at it. And for the right account, not the right job, right? It has to be the right account. We'll do that. And our competitors who I respect and are sophisticated business people will do the same. And one of those decisions might be if you're going up against one of those competitors and you've got to snap this customer to attention, it might be on that first project or second project on price as a part of it, not as a standalone, but as a part of it. So when they put the whole thing together, they go, wow, competitive price, exceptional company, long history. We know they're legit. It all comes together for them to give you that shot. And then from there, your ops team is going to knock it out of the park.
So coming back to something, is it the case that they're basically the biz dev people or teams in these businesses are doing the lunch and learns, they're doing the associations, they're doing the networking, they're going to the social events, the events, the awards nights, they're maybe they're sponsoring things, and then they're doing all that activity literally to have someone either at the lunch and learn or in an email or on a phone call say, you know what, yeah, we will actually let you have a look at this. Are they at that point handing it right off to sales?
Yeah.
And then sales goes in and does the estimate, does the scope, how puts the numbers together, gives them the proposal.
Yeah, and it's a curated handoff. Right. So the sales rep is fully aware of the work that has gone into get this opportunity, and then like I said, then biz dev, when it's done right, comes in at the end to just make sure it all closes up beautifully. Right.
Because of the numbers and the nature and the long term, this is not, you come from the college pro world too. Yeah. This is not, you're not sitting in the vehicle doing napkin math to figure out a $5,000 paint job and then give them a 10-minute pitch at the kitchen table.
Right.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. But that's if that's your business, that's your business. Yeah. You can optimize that to the nth degree. But if we're talking about this right now, like these are whales. These are big clients. So this, like the handoff from biz dev to sales is taken very seriously. The meeting where you're kind of introducing the other people on the team is taken very, very seriously. I mean, do you guys like look at the estimates or the proposals that sales is putting together for the first time to make sure that they're on par? Like what kind of happens there?
Yeah. So if we're bringing on a new rep, they are not certified and set free for the first year.
Right. Okay.
Every single
there's training wheels.
There's a lot of training. I mean, it's some of these projects are quite large. Some of them are multi-year.
Yeah.
Right. We're working on 2 right now that have phased over 2 years. There's relatively large money involved and risk involved. Right. You screw it up, you're going to be in trouble. Right.
So I want to shift gears here and ask you a little bit about the customer retention piece, because you've alluded to it a bunch of times, but let's talk in practical terms. Like, how do you keep a great client for 20 years?
Well, you treat them like gold, first off, all the way through. I can tell you that there's clients that we brought on in year 1 that are still with us today, and myself or my business partner still manages those accounts 20 years later. If we brought them on, we're still with them. We haven't passed them off to anybody, right? Mm-hmm. So we treat them really well. So
what are these buyers looking like? How, you've alluded to it a few different times, but can you just answer it again in almost bullet points? Like the owner or the leadership team or the decision maker of a property group, what's important to them in a contract. Like, what are they looking for? Where do they go? No, like we would never leave WCP building renewal. These guys rock. Like, how do you do that?
Right. So they want to know you are an expert, right? Let's say you're waterproofing a building. You're not going to try to figure out how to stop their leaks. You are going to stop their leaks, right? So you have the knowledge and experience to solve the problem that they have.
Yeah.
Like that's the first thing. It's not a guessing game. They're coming to you to solve a problem.
Right.
Okay. They want to see years of experience, right? They want to see, or if you're only a few years in your business, they want to see that you've done like projects to what they're looking for. Okay.
What else?
There's the old, like we talked about the get it factor. They want to know that you get it in terms of what their tenants' needs are, right?
This tenant thing is a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if they're disruptive or business is affected in any way, that's a big problem for them.
Right. Whether it be a commercial tenant or if say it's an apartment building, people living there, they don't want to get 18 emails, 3 days after you've started the job. That's a bad thing for them. Right. So you're going to be polite, courteous, professional, safe. Safety is a huge one. Like things that 5 years ago were sort of nice to haves are now table stakes. Full PPE on all sites, no questions asked, right? Proper site safety in terms of like your machines and coned off properly, hoarding erected. Like these are things, it's just expected from these customers. They don't want to have to call you and be like, dude, put a bunch of delineators around your boom lifts, right? Like they expect that you're gonna do that.
Is that just a function of the stakes being higher because the buildings are bigger and the revenue being drawn off of them is larger compared to a homeowner?
Yeah, 100%. And then the job is done as efficiently and effectively as possible.
They don't like dicking
around. And if you have a solution that's say 3 times more expensive, they will look at it if they can see 3 times the value from it.
Right.
Some of these companies, they just go to their accounting teams and they go, hey, look, what do you think about this? We can do this project for $500,000 or $800,000. Can you run the numbers for me? Where is the value in terms of how do we amortize this, all that? What have we budgeted for CapEx versus operating costs? They'll do that analysis, right? And they come back and be like, absolutely, we want to go with the higher price tag because we see more value. Maybe the lifetime of the job you're doing is longer. So the amortization is less. They say, yes, let's do it. Makes sense. It's just numbers, right?
I suspect as well because if you've done a good job of this, you are quote unquote their guy or their girl. You've built this relationship. You have the inroads. The rapport is built. You would be expected to also not just do these frothy high margin jobs. Are you not also on the hook to go do the little stuff that you'd probably rather not do too?
You bet. And that's about maintaining the account. So they
call you for a small little $7,000 deal.
And you jump.
You do it.
Yeah, you do it. So some of our rope access guys, there's one tower in downtown Vancouver. You would have seen our guys hanging 200 feet in the air doing sealant work. And then you'll see them on the ground in the parkade repairing a 3-foot crack.
Right.
Right. for not $7,000, for $300 because you want to take care of that customer, whatever it takes. Because if you don't, someone else will, and they'll use that as their entry. Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's that's a really good point. You have to look after these kind of, you look at it, you kind of groan. It's a half day for a guy or a full day that you got to pull off another crew. I'm sure that it is annoying. You would know, but it's like, listen, this is part of the deal. And so you do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am curious about building out this capacity as an owner. So I think in most instances, is it the case that I'll just ask you directly, in your case, was it you doing all of this business activity for the first few years? And then did you get to a critical mass or a size where it's like, okay, there's enough stuff happening here where I can build out a team?
Yeah, exactly. So I was doing, the biz dev side of it on my own for the first, call it 5 years.
Okay.
Got it up to, a couple million. And then from there, started adding. We did it. I learned this business development side of the things the hard way, right? We started just by adding sales reps, right? And we asked them to do, back in the day, we asked them to do marketing, biz dev, sales, and operations, right?
That didn't work.
It didn't.
There's that specialization thing again.
It burns people out, right? It burns people out. You can't possibly pay them enough.
Yeah. And
it's exhausting. It's hard. So then we started to specialize. I learned that, through experience.
So, let's say, there's a listener here and they're like, this is so rad. I've got these steps to follow. I'm going to go do this. And they're going to hit this hard for 5 years and they're going to grow themselves into a situation where they're looking to hire their first dedicated business development person. Or we have a listener that's already there. How would you, they're asking you for advice, coach them on what the actual job description entails, what's on that role breakdown, what's on that employment agreement for a business development person, and what maybe shouldn't be.
Right. So specifically, what you're really looking for is a relationship person.
Okay.
Right. A person that can build and maintain long-term relationships, right? That's a key preference for this person. There is no fear of going into a room full of people and making that initial introduction. They thrive on stuff like that, right? That has to be there. That is like a baseline thing. Sharpness is important as well. They're going to be being able to identify the accounts that they should go after for all the business reasons. So they got to be able to understand that side of things. They are definitely not someone who sees an account as transactional, right? They see this as a long-term play. They want to be involved in a lot of the aspects of the business because they see the value of each division in the company, right? And how business development impacts each division. Then, like I said, especially at the end, these people are pretty good leaders.
Are they?
Right? They are good leaders. Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're dealing with a lot of stakeholders, right? They've got to get the customer on board. They got to get the sales rep on board. They got to be able to talk to the operations guys, be like, hey guys, key account here. Let's make sure we knock this one out of the park. Right.
So you're looking for a real community builder. There's pretty high emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
You mentioned sharpness, so they're able to kind of read a room, know who's who, know.
Yeah, quick with conversations.
Yeah,
right?
A good chit chatter.
100%.
Yeah, that's it. You got to be good at a cocktail. I'm not good at a cocktail party.
Yeah.
You got to be good at that if you're really going to play this game.
And not afraid, no fear of the cold email or cold call. To them, that's just a challenge, right?
They need to understand that role. Have you had the most success hiring people that have already been in a business development position, or is this something that you can just hire? They've got the personality, they've never done this before, but we're going to kind of train them into it.
So, it depends where you're at with your business. If you're not at a place where you can afford the salary to get the experienced person, then you have no choice but to train them. We've done both. I'm now at a place where, because we're scaling the business again, I'm now at a place where I would prefer to bring on the experienced person. Yeah. And of course they need support. They got to know your culture and all that. But I would prefer the plug and play, but that's just where I'm at, right? That's not for everybody. You can do both. If you're training somebody, it's going to take some time.
Any big red flags if you were looking for a business, you were interviewing them, you're getting to know them early on, you may be looking at a few candidates, any just obvious red flags, hey, this isn't going to work?
So, if they're like off the charts, precise, analytical, it's probably not going to work, right? Because this is not a precise analytical endeavor.
Right.
This is like soft all the way through, like you're building a relationship. And then that transactional person that just sees the customer or the account as a checkbook or a bonus check, it is not going to work. They're not going to build lasting relationships. And there's a lot of people in the sales and biz dev world out there that are like that, right?
Last couple of questions here. Just I know our listeners are going to be curious about comp structures. Everyone always asks, how should I pay these people? I don't necessarily need a dollar figure because that changes market to market.
Right.
But what are the KPIs that you're tracking? What are the deliverables that you're anchoring bonuses to? How much is base? How much is variable?
Right.
Any thoughts on that?
Right. Okay. So it's a great question. Comp questions are always super challenging and nuanced, right? My philosophy or approach to comp after years and years of getting it wrong and trying different models with different businesses is your base salary is above market.
Okay.
Right. And bonus is a little bit less. That is my approach now. I have run different approaches where base salary is below, a bonus is way above, high. Right?
Why? Say there's something there. Why is that your philosophy?
Because if you bring someone on board and you pay them really, first off, when someone comes to you, either they're leaving somebody, ideally they are because they've been recruited in, right? If they're making that big change, they deserve a big bump up. First off, I believe that. And if it goes sideways, okay, and you've got the higher comp structure, it's easier to part ways. There's no big bonus looming in the background that they want to hang on, or you're anxious about, oh geez, they gotta stay on a little bit longer, so they get that, they deserve it, they've worked hard for it. It's like, no, this isn't working out, you're not delivering. The exit is a lot cleaner and simpler. Those are a couple of reasons why. But to answer the question on the KPIs, so what are you measuring? You're measuring new account acquisition, right? So net new accounts. When before you were here, we weren't working with this account. Now we are.
Okay.
Great, right? Account penetration. Before we handed you account X, we were generating this much revenue from them on an annual basis. Now we're at X plus 25. Excellent work.
Great.
Right? There's another KPI. There's a whole things like lunch and learns booked, web shop attendance, association involvement, all these things that are not necessarily like hard measurements, but you can see the lift. And then I also believe that business development should be participating in the overall lift of the company. Because so much of the work they do may not be immediately measurable. Mm-hmm. But if your company's grown 30% year over year and you've got a biz dev or two biz dev people kicking butt out there, I promise you the work they're doing is contributing to that lift. So we like to tie it directly to the lift as the company as a whole. So harder to measure, not super precise, but I feel it's one fair way to compensate biz dev.
This has been incredibly valuable and I think clear and concise and just sort of point by point. This totally makes sense. I think if you're listening to this podcast at home or in your truck or whatever, and this is something that you want to start to incorporate into your business, you can re-listen to this and take notes and kind of mold it and fit it and augment it to fit your market and your service, whatever. But I think we have a bit of a roadmap here for how to go after bigger commercial accounts and be successful with them. I got one more question before we wrap, Dave. You've done a lot of different ventures, ups and downs, different. You've been through a few market cycles.
Yes.
Okay. Like a lot of newer entrepreneurs have not.
Yeah.
What is if you're approached by a young entrepreneur,
right,
what advice do you have for them?
So a couple, like I like to call them truth bombs here.
Perfect.
Right. So if you're a young entrepreneur and you are lucky enough to get connected with a mentor, whether it's just a one-time thing or an ongoing thing, if this mentor has more experience than you, successes and failures, perhaps most importantly, you respect and trust them, and they give you, they are kind enough to give you advice, don't question the advice, just do it. Okay? Don't think you know better than this person. Don't think your business is different than everybody else's, because it's not. It's the same, right? All businesses have the same problems. They typically are cash and people, right? So if you are lucky enough to meet someone kind enough to take you under their wing and they're dropping gold nuggets on you, just do it. So there's a piece of advice.
Why do you think young entrepreneurs sometimes don't?
Because their ego gets in the way, right? We all have egos and we all have a hard time listening. We all think we know better. We all think we're different. We all think our businesses is different. They're just not. I'm here to tell you, I mean, I've got friends who have exited businesses in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And I can tell you their problems were the same as the business doing $5 million of revenue. It's just scaled up. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. It's just scaled up.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing advice. And I think I'm sure it's frustrating as the more mature senior business person to be giving truth bombs or be giving gold nuggets and watching them either go over their head or even worse, kind of go in, get considered, and then go, yeah, I think I'm just going to do my thing, right? It's going to go my way. It's got to be really annoying.
Well, and I mean, you know what? It's a part of it, right? It's a part of your growth as an entrepreneur. I certainly made those mistakes many, many, many times. I mean, I had... was a member of EO for years and years and years, and got lots of great advice that I did not listen to. And years back, I'm like, oh wow, he sure was right. I wish I had listened to that. Life would have been a little easier, right?
It's been amazing, Dave. I really appreciate the run through. If
super
people
fun.
want to connect with you, if people want to learn more about you, what you're up to, I don't know if you've got URLs or LinkedIn's or just what's kind of your digital footprint.
LinkedIn, message me through LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest.
Okay, we will link that below in the show notes. Yeah. And thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, man. Thank you. It was really fun.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Contractor Evolution. If you've already subscribed to our channel, consider sharing this episode with another contractor who you think needs to hear it.